Thinking about it. And we are live.
Yeah.
Oh wait, it says setting up your webinar for Facebook Live. There's a little bar.
He's giving the beats. I'm giving the dance number.
Redirecting to Facebook Live. Fantastic, you guys. We are live. Woo! Welcome, everyone. Ask a Bookkeeper community. Thank you so much for joining us today for our first Friday Facebook Live on July 6, 2018. Yay! I am Ingrid Edstrom of Polymath LLC, and we are joined today with Vanessa, also of Polymath, Penny, the practical professional of Penny's Pies.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you.
And our fantastic guest star, Mathew Patrick Heggem of Higher Effect, is joining us today to talk about influence marketing. Thank you so much, Mathew, for being here.
You are welcome. It's an honor. I love you. I love Penny. I love Vanessa. I love the whole team. So I'm very happy to be here.
Oh, we love you, Mathew, and we love your hair.
Thank you.
During the prep, we spent like 10 minutes talking about Mathew's hair because it's amazing.
Maybe 6.5.
Yay. And we do have a few other people joining us in the background. A couple of them have already opted to stay in the background. If any of you are interested in joining us in the actual conversation here on Facebook, please feel free to just post that in the chat and I will promote you to panelist. We would love to have you join the conversation. So Mathew, tell us just a little bit about Higher Effect. I think a lot of people in our audience don't know what you guys do at Higher Effect.
Correct. Yeah, awesome. So I am the chief strategist at Higher Effect. And really what our focus is sort of a two-part thing. One, it's about people. And specifically, we have a talent recruiting division, which is really just about helping organizations, small business owners to find the type of talent that's going to help them to get to the next level. So we're not just interested in filling admin roles. We're not interested in, plugging a gap. We want to find people who are who are part of the vision, part of the mission, aligned with the values, and will be there with the organization going forward. So that's sort of the talent side. And then the technology side. We come from obviously a background in accounting technology, which is how we met each other, and is something I'm still very much passionate about. But I think what I'm curious about nowadays is really just how technology applies throughout the entire organization. And obviously your accounting system is not just the only house of data. You have your marketing tools, your CRM, you've got different entry points for data to come in when you're interacting with your customers. So it's also about sort of taking a step back and looking at the technology. So it's people, or our equation is talent plus technology equals business transformation. And that's really what we're about, helping businesses to transform.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Very cool. So this conversation about influence marketing really started at QuickBooks Connect this last year. We had a fantastic celebration after our Kickstarter campaign was successful, which was a lot of fun.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes. And the idea of influence marketing came up as part of the discussion in that wonderful meal, as it pertains to Ask a Bookkeeper in particular. And we thought that this would be a fantastic discussion for you to have with us, Mathew. As far as, I guess, starting off, let's explain to us, our audience, what is influence marketing?
Cool. It's a big term and it encompasses a lot of things, but I think at the heart of what it's about is helping others to understand what it is that you offer. And what it is that you offer is something that's uniquely you, and who your customers are is something that is uniquely them. And so it's also about figuring out a way to leverage the tools that you have available, or the strategies or techniques that are sort of at the disposal of a marketing or a salesperson in order to bridge the gap, ultimately to create some sort of a result. Whether it's an impression, a brand impression, you just want them to see your name over and over again. It's acquiring a new business relationship, whether it's a referral partner, a collaborator, et cetera, or actually generating client leads and opportunities. So at the end of the day, influence in marketing that's sort of what it's all about. Yeah. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense.
Sort of. Actually, there's a lot of industry jargon in there. Could you give us maybe an example?
An example of influence marketing?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, geez. Let's see. What's a good example?
Or perhaps how you've helped a business through influence marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a ton of examples. Whether or not they're effective is a whole other conversation. But so I can only speak from my perspective at this point.
Sure.
But I would say that I've seen influence marketing done by organizations well when they are clear about what it is they offer, obviously. They are also trying to find ways to add value in the communication stream. So it's not just about, posting an advertisement on Facebook, or if you're a local pie shop owner, it's not just about, buying the ad on the back of a bus that, gets the most traction. It's also about helping the person that's receiving that information to understand what they're going to get out of that experience in a unique way. So I think that when I see really good influence marketing being conducted, it's actually an interaction, or it's social engagement is what it is. It's where you're having this sort of back and forth dialogue with a prospective customer or a community that then sort of fills itself with the content that creates the influence. It's really a dialogue. I mean, that's maybe like a different explanation of it. But I think at the end of the day, and we've talked about this previously, I think when we were checking in, is this idea of community. And I think really what it comes down to, or boils down to, is influence marketing is about building a connection to the community that you're in, whatever that community might be. And it's certainly different for everybody.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Matthew. Marketing is all about communication, and communication is all about connection, real relationships with real people. And when it comes down to our businesses, one great way that I heard this explained once was my friend Lou Raja, who's a fantastic speaker up in Portland area, was talking to me about the 3 I's. And the 3 I's are income, of course. A business has to be sustainable. We need to make income. But the other 2 are influence and impact. So income, influence, and impact are the 3 I's of a business and of marketing within a business. Yes, you need to make a dollar. But at the same time, that's not the only thing that we're working to create. What is the impact that we're working on creating in the world around us? And how do we use our influence to make things happen? And influence is really about relationships, which is what you really hit on just now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's the 3 I's, and for me, at least as it relates to influence marketing, it's the 3 C's: community, connection, and collaboration.
Nice.
So we all love
community,
our
connection,
letters.
and collaboration. Oh, I like that.
So this episode of Ask a Bookkeeper is brought to you by the number 3 and the letter I. We have been joined by a couple of our community members. I want to just point them out and welcome them really quick. Brent Blackburn and Mariette Martinez, thank you so much for joining us. And we do have another handful of people in the background.
Hi, Brent. Good to see you both.
Nice
If any of you would like to join the conversation, feel free to post in the chat and say, hey, go ahead and make my video live. And Brent and Mariette, do you want to just let us know where you're calling in from?
You go first, Brent.
Go ahead.
Brent, you take it away.
I'll go.
Okay,
so I'm calling from Ontario, California. Southern California, super hot, sunny, and beautiful over here. Super excited to be here. Always love to see Penny. I can't kiss her today, but I love to see her. I give her virtual kisses. And awesome to see Matthew and Vanessa and Brent and everyone out there watching us. I do want you to repeat really slowly the 3 C's and the 3 I's, because it was so impactful, and I think we need to repeat it again. I believe in both the C's and the I's, and I'm going to decide on should I do like CI, because I love them both. I'm going to have to do like a play on words there, but can you repeat that? Because I try to write it down and you guys went so fast.
I'll start off with the C's and then I'll pass it off to Ingrid for the I's. So the first one was community, which we all know and love. Second one was connection. And the third one is collaboration.
Thank you.
And the 3 I's are influence, which is what we're talking about today, influence marketing, influence, impact, and income.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Brent, where are you calling in from?
I am in Utah. I think we're even hotter than Ontario today, 102. And I am glad to be here. I think this particular community is really working well in terms of that kind of collaboration between beginners and experienced bookkeepers. I'm a member of a lot of different groups, and they all have their own personalities, but I really like this one in the way it helps, especially those who are starting out to learn some things that we've all run into 100 times before.
Thanks, Brent. Yes. That is a big part of the intention here at Ask a Bookkeeper, is to really meet people where they are. Everyone had to learn everything the first time at some point. And we want to make sure that people have the tools that they need. And one of the biggest fears of every entrepreneur is the fear of being called as a fake. Having somebody say, how dare you call yourself an entrepreneur when you don't know everything there is to know about running a small business?
Right.
And we want to make it so that people have the tools that they need and feel like they can step into trying something new in a safe place and ask for help without feeling stupid. And that is why we created the Ask a Bookkeeper show. It's like Sesame Street for business owners. So that's exactly what we are doing here. Thank you so much for joining us, Brent. And it's really kind of amazing to us because we started the show for all business owners. And then it kind of astonished us how much of our audience is accounting professionals, and especially accounting professionals and bookkeepers who are just getting started in the profession and looking for direction on where to go within the accounting world, which is changing so quickly with advancing technology. So we're bringing together experienced accounting professionals with brand new accounting professionals, and also with the business owners that we work to serve, so that we can all work together to create a rising tide that raises all ships without any of the pretentious, oh, you don't know that yet?
Right. That's one thing I've really noticed about this group is that the nature of the questions, first of all, is overall more basic, and I think that's wonderful, and no one gets attacked when they ask those. And both of those things are unusual, so that's great.
That's one of the great things about having a puppet answering the questions, or more to the point, asking the questions, because I'm pretty shameless. I can ask any question. Oh yeah, I'm messing up my business all the time. How can I fix it? But a lot of people are embarrassed for the same reasons that you were just talking about. They feel like that they should know better. But, I'm a puppet, no pride. Shame. Well, I have a lot of pride in my pies, but.
One thing I want to say about the puppet, which I personally love the puppet, but what I actually feel when I have conversations about the puppet, it goes with influence marketing, is, I think Ingrid, and you can, share more about this or let me know if I'm right or wrong. The influence you're bringing in with a puppet also kind of comes together with, you're very intentional with your message. Like if you can play with a puppet, if you can work with a puppet, if your marketing could be around a puppet, like it really shows that, we all can make things happen. I mean, even at all stages of our life, at all stages that we're at, it's like almost, we always talk about being intentional and going back into why we're doing what we're doing and finding that like childhood dream of why we started our business. And every time I see the puppet, or every time I see anyone brings in something personal about their lives, I love that because it makes me feel like your marketing is more real. It's like about you wanting to influence and impact the world, but at a much bigger, in a much bigger way, with a bigger vision. And we could all be accountants, we could all help small business owners, but when you're doing it with a puppet, it's like, it's like you're not scared to do it. And I'm sure you have people that are like, I don't get it. I don't get the puppet. But I get it because it's like a childhood dream. Like if we really think about entrepreneurship, it really comes from a dream. I have 3 kids and 2 of my kids are already dreaming about being an entrepreneur. And so I love that. And that's what I see every time I see the puppet. I see like the impact of like, it comes from our dreams. And, characters and puppets, those are like what we played with. Those were our dreams. And I love that every time I see your puppet.
Right.
So I just wanted to make a comment. First of all, Brent, thank you for that testimonial for this community, because I know that Ingrid and I have been talking about really the role that this platform, Ask a Bookkeeper, can serve for the community to be a gateway towards this idea of influence marketing and just marketing in general. And I think that the awesome thing, Ingrid, is that you've already accomplished that. You've already created that space for people. You've already given them an opportunity to ask questions and to connect with people around a sort of shared set of principles that allows them to actually feel safe to ask even some of the most basic questions. And I think that that's a really important thing to highlight, especially in this topic of marketing, because we talk, and this is to your point, Marietta, about authenticity, right? Well, authenticity and vulnerability go hand in hand. If you're not willing to risk others' judgment of you, right, whether it stems from a lack of confidence or it's just simply because you're different, but you're not ready to share that difference with the world yet, but that there's this ultimate need that we need to tap into, really ultimately the desire for us as marketers is to actually break through some of those barriers and to expose the vulnerability so that the authenticity can come through. And so it's really cool that this platform is here, and good, congratulations.
Yay!
Very cool.
Good for you.
Well, the main thing that inspired this conversation this month on influence marketing has actually been the questions that have been posted in the Ask a Bookkeeper Facebook group. One of the most common questions that we get in that group is, how do I get more customers for my business? And that's, something that a lot of businesses experience, most businesses at some point or another. And we all have to learn how to find those initial customers at some point. And we've got some great resources in Ask a Bookkeeper that we've posted in threads. If you search in the Ask a Bookkeeper Facebook group for just the word customers or clients, I actually went through a couple weeks ago and posted about this event in a lot of those threads, just trying to let people know, hey, we're answering your question live. And there's some great resources, including we had a video with Dr. Ivan Meisner on our show, the Ask a Bookkeeper show on YouTube. And Ivan Meisner,
I love it.
It's so much fun.
Dr. Meisner. Oh, he was wonderful.
He is the founder of Business Network International, BNI, and he's basically the father of modern networking. And we talk about how to get clients through network marketing. And today, talking with Mathew about how to get clients through influence marketing. Mathew, what are your, kind of top tips? What are some action steps that our community members can take today to improve their influence and really, connect more effectively with their ideal customers?
So that's a big question, to say the least. First of all, I want to clarify one thing, because I think when I think of influence marketing, to me, it's both online and offline activities. So when you're networking with people, you are, for better or worse, sometimes asserting your influence. Just as much as when you're online and you're tweeting or you're responding or you're engaging, you're also influencing. So just to be clear, I think when I package those things together, and I think partly why, and this is the reason why it's a part of the answer to your question, is it really does come back to defining, but rather refining your understanding of who your customer really is. Because if you're speaking to the solutions and you're speaking to the unique services that you provide, but you haven't turned it around and put it in the language that your customer can understand, then you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage. And the awesome solution to that is go out and just talk to more customers, talk to ideal customers and see what they say about you, about your services, and maybe consider for like 5 minutes that they might actually be better marketers about your services than you.
Absolutely.
Maybe, right?
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, do please.
Yeah. So you talk a lot about the communicating with the customers and talking with them about these things, but I want to put the point out there too. Listening is the most important part of communication. Not getting your point across, but understanding their position, which is what you were just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be devastating for you to go in there and to just talk and not listen. That would be a waste of everybody's time. So yes, listening is critical. And I think to answer that question, point number 2 is listen for how they want to hear you. And your customers will tell you what platforms they want to communicate through, whether directly or indirectly. Your customers will tell you where they're willing to meet you, how much time they're willing to give you, when they're willing to give you time. And so you really have to tune in to the behaviors, in essence, the attitudes and the actions of your customer, your ideal customer profile, and refine your strategy to get to them. It's not that you change your service. I think some people think, oh, well, I have this certain way of working with my customers and they need to know it. And it's very specific. And I say no to this and yes to this. And I have my process and that's good. But when it comes to marketing, marketing is actually a two-way dynamic between you and your customers. So you'll only ever have half the answer to what the solution is that you're trying to solve. And that being said, going back to your point, Penny, it is about listening, and it's listening to tune in to those channels and those modes of communication that will actually make the difference and tip the scale for your customer. And then the third point, I think, is knowing your story. And really your story is the story of your customer. And so being able to explain to them what the pain is and how you solve that pain and what it feels like afterwards and what the journey is going to be like, and maybe even tying that out to the emotional landscape that they'll be embarking on. If it's a big deal for them if it's the first time they've ever hired a bookkeeper, they might not be comfortable yet showing all of their business to somebody, right? And so you have to tap into that emotional dynamic through the storytelling experience to help them know that, first of all, that's okay, that's something that a lot of people struggle to do at first. But when they do it and they get through some of those tough moments where they're like admitting that they don't take a paycheck, or they're admitting that they're behind on bills, that all of a sudden they get back on the outside of that, or they go through that transformation, and then they realize, and you help them to realize, look, it's okay. Like, I have other people who have walked that same path, who've struggled through that same journey, and they're still alive. And in fact, they're doing great. Their businesses are better. And so it's also about showing them to a certain degree what the light at the end of the tunnel looks like, and being able to tell that story in a clear way is really critical specifically to getting new customers, if that's what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Amen, brother. It's fascinating because I was just talking about some of these same ideas at the Scaling New Heights conference that Woodard Events puts on. It was just a couple weeks ago in June, and talking with the members of my breakout session that I taught about imposter syndrome and how there's this fear that people are going to kind of peel back the curtain and expose us as frauds, when generally we're the only ones saying those things to ourselves. And being able to put ourselves forward and say, you know what? I don't have all the answers. Let's let our customers have some of the answers. Yeah. Let's instead of trying to be solutionists and come up with all the answers, focus on asking the right questions and letting people find their answers. And that by empowering them, they find more value in our services than if we just spout off answers at them.
Right.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I mean, let me rephrase this. I have cycled through imposter syndrome many times. I think any entrepreneur who is pushing themselves to try new things has that day that they wake up in the morning and they're like, what the hell am I doing? And then you realize everybody has that moment, or hopefully, if they're pushing themselves, if they're challenging themselves to be a truly innovative entrepreneur, then they're going to have that moment over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, it does go back to that vulnerability and that authenticity piece. And actually, one of the other tips that I shared with you earlier, Ingrid, just in terms of like marketing online in particular, is there's this sort of attitude that you have to have it right. You have to have the right picture. You have to edit it. It's got to be, the text can only be 140 characters or whatever the limit is for that particular day. And you know, there's this sort of sense of perfectionism because that's the standard. That's what at least what the good ones are doing. And if we want to do it right or go home. But actually, that's not true. I mean, I think the most effective people on social media, for example, are actually experimenting with their content. They know that what they're putting up online is maybe horrible. Maybe it's a horrible image. They didn't really think about the text. The article is, if your high school, English teacher read it, they'd give you an F, right? But they're going to do it anyways. And they're doing it because I think there is this acceptable behavior of sharing what you don't know and also being open to getting the feedback. And it's actually a really interesting opportunity, I think, for us as marketers with expertise to go online and this is one of my strategies. Like, as I solve a problem for myself or for a customer, I try to figure out a really easy way to share the solution. Even if it's just like, hey, I just solved this customer retention strategy issue, and then I go find a blog article on customer retention and put that up. And now, great, I didn't have to write the blog article, but I'm still sharing a solution that is about the problem that I'm solving, all the way up to the other day I had to help a friend and a client of mine download a YouTube video. She forgot what the credentials were. And so I had to go figure out how to download a YouTube video without having login credentials. I figured it out and I posted it. And it has nothing to do with what I would do on a daily basis for people, but just the fact that I was sharing a solution to a problem that people might be having. What it does is it creates this dynamic between you and the world online, where they see you as a problem solver. They see you as somebody who can look at the bigger picture and find bits and pieces of information. And if anything, you're at least a resource. And that's, I think, what influence marketing becomes about at the end of the day. Well,
and you were talking about vulnerability and authenticity. And this idea went through my head that people don't relate to perfection. Being able to put a flawed face forward makes you much more relatable. Think about the Wizard of Oz, right? When he was Oz, the great and powerful, nothing was getting done. Nobody was going anywhere. Nobody was being helped, not even himself. It was only when he came out from behind the curtain that he was able to get his wishes fulfilled by going home, and everybody else, the Dorothy and the Scarecrow, Tin Man and Lion, they were able to get their wishes fulfilled. Everything was great once vulnerability was established.
Yeah.
Well,
and not to talk too much about it, but maybe I'll say a few words. I think what's interesting there is that's true, and it's relative to your customer. I was at a dance studio yesterday, actually sitting down with an artistic director and he runs a big sort of pre-professional organization, but it's mostly focused on theater students. And I was looking at his flyers with him and just talking about some of his business challenges. And he looked at the flyer and he saw these dancers, and I don't know who here studied dance, but I'll kind of give some context here. But basically what it was, it's a bunch of dancers at a ballet bar, and they were in this position called arabesque. And so, and if you looked at it, like half of their legs weren't high, their toes weren't pointed, their lines weren't straight. And, and you think about it from like a classical ballet perspective, and certainly the gentleman that I was speaking with had strong classical ballet technique and training. He looked at that and was like, oh, I'm so embarrassed about this image, about this photo. It's like the dancers don't look good, but it's all we have, and we need to promote. So we needed to put a picture there. And I said to him, I was like, well, yeah, but your customers aren't professional ballet dancers. And then I explained to him the fact that if I have a little girl or a little boy who wants to take ballet, and I want to take them to this class, and they see that picture, they're not going to be intimidated by what they see. They're going to actually see themselves in that image and realize that they can be in that room too. And I think that's the balance that you're striking when you make choices online and in your marketing you have to literally allow them to see themselves in the space. As what you said reminded me of that. So
yeah.
Absolutely right. It's all about connection. So we only have a couple minutes left because, of course, amazing conversation flies by so quickly. What's something that maybe Penny can do in her business to improve her influence marketing?
Yeah, I mean, Penny and I, for those of you who don't know, have been chatting a bit about her business.
Before we got on live.
Exactly.
Just as a background for, I think most people probably already know this, but I own a pie shop called Penny's Pies. And so it's like a coffee shop, but the main focus is on pies. And so we have a nice little community that we grow around there, working with the stories of the people and the customers and the employees and all of that. It's become a nice little community place.
So what I think Penny does well as a business owner is she creates the space that she needs to create for her customers. You come in, you smell the pies, you have this emotional experience associated with pies. It's a coffee shop like coffee shops should be or used to be. It's not a quick, it's not a mobile app that you run in and get angry at the barista for not having your coffee ready before you jet back out again, right? It's about an experience. And really that experience is connecting to the people in this space and triggering these sort of emotional reactions. And that's sort of how customer retention, I think, happens in your space, among other things. But what was interesting to me and where we left off on the conversation was how you and how Penny's Pies shows up in the community on a larger scale. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. I know we didn't get to talk about it at great length, but I think there is an opportunity for Penny's Pies to actually get out there and have a much more dynamic existence within the community that it resides. And so, of course, the cooking classes that you provide are awesome. That's a great starting point. And in fact, the fact that some of them are free opens up access to your space. And so that's important. And now what I would ask you, if we're talking about this from a marketing perspective, is that's great for the people who can make it there. That's great for the people who have the time. But what about your customers who can't show up? Or maybe they're not ready to join a cooking class, or maybe they can't even afford the $100 or whatever it is. And so then it becomes a question of how does your engagement with the community go beyond not just your store and these live events, but also to the broader community online. So I start to think, oh, wow, wouldn't it be awesome if Penny's Pies had this sort of like rallying call to bring the community together to take, we were talking about that awesome experience that you provided that child and having, that the mud with the worms and the thing and that like that child. And what if you had a campaign?
Let me tell the audience briefly that story. Okay, so where this comes from, what Matthew's talking about is last year we had a contest at Penny's Pies where customers could submit pie ideas, and they couldn't be standard pies. It couldn't be like a blueberry pie with whipped cream or anything like that. And so there was one child who submitted the idea of a worm and mud pie. And so I took that and ran with it, and I did gummy worms and then like the chocolate pudding pie with the whipped cream on top and the bits of Oreo in it. So yeah, it was like a mud pie with worms in it, and it was really, well, it was kind of strange, but the kids loved it.
They did. And I loved it. When I heard that story, I immediately went back to my childhood. I immediately had fond memories. And that was the thing that I was saying to you about how you create that experience in your store. So now I'm thinking like, okay, what must it have been like for that kid? But then how many other kids in your community don't get what they need to feel fulfilled? And so then I was like, okay, well, what if every week you gave a pie away to somebody who really needed it? Maybe you visited the community center and just dropped off 3 pies because they needed the pies. And then the next day or next week, you dropped it off at the children's hospital. And the next day you dropped it off at a local business. And it's this sort of commitment to triggering this positive emotional experience that you have the capability of, because food and emotions are very much tied to each other. Absolutely. It's like the power that you have in giving away pies is actually quite significant. And that's what I'm talking about when I say, well, it's about taking it out into the community in another way and helping your greater community understand why it's so important that you exist inside of that community. You are a heart within, like a heart within the community.
And that is both influence and impact.
Boom.
And I think the main idea there is that the influence and the impact that we create in the world will ultimately lead to income. When we put ourselves out there and we give without the need for immediate personal gain, it will come back to us in the long term greater fold. And yes, not every investment that we make pays off. And it's not all about the ROI, the return on investment. It's also about how are we gaining in other ways? How are we enriching our lives and the lives of the people around us? Because that is how we establish relationships and reputation for people that people want to be around and work with. And that's what influence marketing is really all about.
Absolutely. It's, I'm when you were talking about that, Ingrid, I was thinking about the VCP process, which we learned about in BNI. And that stands for visibility, credibility, and profitability. And every company needs to have this in order to really become profitable. First, they have to be visible. People have to know who they are. But then the second level is the hardest and the most important, and that's credibility. And this influence marketing is a great way to build up credibility because you're giving something back without looking for any return, or anything like that. It also provides visibility because when I drop off my pies, of course, I'm putting them in my pie boxes. So it says Penny's Pies on them. People know it's coming from Penny's Pies, but that's not the reason why I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love that.
Well, that's also, go ahead, Matthew.
No, I want to get a pie. Deliver them to me.
We'll send them out by drones before too long.
Perfect.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, and that's also a big part of what we're doing in the Ask a Bookkeeper community. When we have people within that community answering people's questions, they're not getting paid for that. They're doing it because they're helping somebody else. It feels good. It creates community that they get to be involved in. Maybe they'll have a question later on that then somebody else can answer. And that in order to do that, the community has to be established. It has to be working. And it also builds up their individual credibility as influencers in the world of accounting and small business. And that's something that people can look at within the Ask a Bookkeeper community, that it's not just in the Facebook group. You can join us here on Facebook Live. And also, if you visit the askabookkeeper.com website, you can sign up to be a guest on a real show. Now, that takes editing and those kinds of things, so we do have to pay to make that happen. But we've got a crowdfunding platform where we can make that happen. And being able to see how we can get more guests on the show that build a community, and just being a face on the Ask a Bookkeeper show puts your name in with other names like Ivan Meisner, Sekou Andrews, and we're hoping to get bigger names down the line even as the show gains recognition and popularity. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have some real stars on the show? It's like starring on the Muppet Show. How often do people get to talk to the puppets? Really?
Right.
Those opportunities, having our names in with other big names, that creates greater influence because now there's search engine optimization tools at play where people will Google one thing and they might see you. So that's another element of influence marketing where, it comes down to who do you want to be with when you grow up? Let's hang out with those people. And when Matthew was talking about Penny's Mud Pie and the inspiration gathered from that experience, and really thinking about what are the visceral emotional connections that we formed as children, that is what we're looking to bring into our businesses. We started our businesses because we have dreams, because we want to make something happen, because it's something that we love. Let's find ways to do it in the most enjoyable way possible. And most of us learned a lot from Sesame Street when we were kids.
Oh, yeah.
So let's use those same tools and ideas and get back to playing within our business. Let's make our work our play and have it be our joy in our lives, that we can all build something together that means something more.
Absolutely.
Word.
I love that. Let's play together.
Yes.
I love that. I love growing together, but I love playing together even more. Let's play together.
Yep.
That's awesome. I want to just mention one thing before we get off. And I think what I've gotten a lot when people hear the word influence, and I actually felt it personally myself, and this session today has been awesome because I feel like I finally know what I've been doing for the last few years, and you put a title to it, which actually helps because when we put a title to something, again, it's more intentional and we can be more, really proactive about how we're going to move forward with it. So I just thank you for giving it a word and a name.
Yes.
Now I feel
naming things. It has power. That's why they call it spelling.
Yes. Thank you for that. And we learned that back in the day when we were young, hopefully. So one thing I do want to mention though, is the word influence. So I know a lot of us are intimidated by that word. I think it puts a lot of pressure on us. And I've even seen people write about the fact that they think influencer is like a fraud. Like you shouldn't call yourself an influencer. You shouldn't use that word. And so I take a completely different perspective. And I think it's helped me, and I've shared it a lot, is that I feel like influencer is a privilege. I feel like it's an honor, and I'm incredibly humbled when someone even remotely brings up that word in a conversation. And again, I take steps back and I'm like, what does that mean? And I think what it means, it just gives me more, like you said, and what I said here, what you've all said, it's intentional and it's impactful. And it gives me that obligation to just continue forward, because now someone has like confirmed with me and validated that like I am making a difference and I am the heart, and they want me to continue. And so when they use that word, or when we give ourselves that title, I think it makes us even more impactful personally and in our community. So I just want to encourage you not to be scared of the word influence or influencers. I think it's inspiring, actually. And so, but it's a mindset change, because it also puts a bigger responsibility on ourselves when people consider us an influencer. And you may not be ready for that, but if you are, take it as a privilege and don't take it as something negative, or even like, well, what does it make you an influencer versus someone? We all can be influencers in our own way. It doesn't make us better than someone else. It just makes our message greater. And so I think that, again, that's something we have to get used to calling ourselves or considering it. So that's why I'm so excited about influence marketing, because I believe that's what I've been doing. I just never really knew how to say it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Excellent.
Yeah. And that fear of words gets, again, once back to imposter syndrome, that fear of, oh, I'm not an influencer. I'm just me.
Right.
If we can each step into our power and own our true, authentic ability to create influence in the world around us, we can have a greater impact. We can do more with the energy that we create if we are willing to get out of our own way. And I think that's a big part. Get out of our own way, be vulnerable, and connect with each other. And it all starts with really knowing why you're doing what you're doing, and letting that why be our fuel, and being a catalyst for that why.
And I know we're wrapping up on time, but this is, I just have to say this, because that was great feedback.
So many fun, juicy ideas.
That was great feedback about the term influence. And my gut reaction was, I've heard the criticism. I mean, I live in the marketing world. I've heard the criticisms on influence marketing, and I get it, right? It's like this idea, you're selling me stuff I don't need, and you're going to try to convince me, and you're going to pretend like the know-it-all. And yeah, there are people that do that. But the truth is, we are all influencers, all right, with our family, our friends, our community, the people who choose to work with us. What we're talking about is shifting our awareness and being intentional in our influence. Not doing it as a mistake or doing it to sell somebody a bag of goods, but doing it from a place where, frankly, you're just sharing what you know, and you're doing it in an honest way. You're talking about your insights, your experiences, and your personal story. And the people who choose to plug into that, and the people who choose to hear that and are moved by that, that's the influence that's occurring. And I think we need to collectively, break down this negativity that's associated with influence marketing, and in fact marketing and sales in general, because there's nothing wrong with it. We're all selling stuff every day. We have to just admit it and believe it and understand it and know that actually that's how this all works. That's how people like Bill Gates become billionaires and then can solve the world's problems in a substantive way. Right? If he wasn't a good salesperson and some other things, he wouldn't be solving all these great problems that he's solving. Right? So how can you embrace that same definition and understand that it's not a corrupt activity? That's something to that was one of my emotional reactions to what you just said.
Basically, what you're saying is you're influencing people anyway. You may as well do it intentionally.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that. Oh my gosh.
It's like public speaking. I used to teach, I was in workforce development. I used to teach people how to go out there and talk. And the first point I made to them was, well, who's afraid of public speaking? Okay, great. You just spoke up. You just raised your hand. So you are all speaking publicly right now. And by the way, the way you got here on a train, on a bus, in a car with your friend, you were talking to them and others were listening. You don't know it, but so it's like, it's demystifying and shining light on the truth, which is that these are things that we do anyways. We just call them something from business perspective.
Well, and when it comes to the selling piece, we're not trying to sell products and services to people who don't want to need them. That completely defeats the purpose. What we're doing with influence marketing is finding each of our echo chambers, the audience with whom our message naturally resonates, and then they sing it back to us. And then they sing it to the world on social media. And that's what creates the marketing, is the community that wants this, that wants to create this with us, the raving fans that are working toward the same ideals, that feel the same way we do. We don't want to sell to people who don't feel the same way we do. It doesn't work. It defeats the purpose. So, everyone's got their preferences and the things they want or don't want. And, let's focus on hanging out with the people we want to hang out with.
Yay! I love it. I want
So
to hang
with
out
that,
with some more.
What was that, Penny?
I said I want to hang out with this group some more.
Yes.
I think I should do this a lot more often.
Well, we're going to start with once a month on the first Friday of Facebook Live.
Come back next month.
Yay.
Well, and next month we've got a really fun guest. Actually, Penny and I are not going to be here next month. We are going to be on vacation in Alaska. So that's a fun, exciting thing. And the wonderful Vanessa Barrett, who often doesn't talk a whole lot, mostly because we're in a small office here. And if multiple of us are unmuted at a time, we get some sound bleed over. So Vanessa's like, Ingrid, you take it. Well, Vanessa is going to be leading the show next month. And our guest is the amazing coach, Lauren Fogelman of businesssuccesssolution.com. And she's going to be talking about how we can remove that imposter syndrome and also anxiety and concern and fear from our businesses, because there's a lot of anxiety that's keeping us from owning our real power and stepping forward in our businesses. We're going to talk with Lauren Fogelman about how to get past that anxiety and really embrace our true potential. So that is our topic for next month, and we are over time. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much to Mr. Mathew Patrick Heggem for joining us from Higher Effect and talking about influence marketing. And thanks so much to Brent and Mariette for joining us from our community today. And to Penny and Vanessa, our wonderful team here at Ask a Bookkeeper. And also to everyone who joined in the background on Zoom and who are watching on Facebook Live. Thank you so much for being part of this community and for creating an influence marketing experience with us, because together we are making a rising tide that raises all ships and making the world a better place, built on a foundation of thriving small businesses, which is what this is all about. So thanks everyone so much, and we will see you next month.
Yep. Thanks, Mathew. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.